I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is the Future Signal podcast. On this episode, I'm super excited to have Deepa on. Deepa and I will kind of go into how we met. If you know me and you know what I'm into, seems like all roads lead back to crypto, and they continue to lead to crypto and Bitcoin in the future. Deepa and I did meet through Web3, and we are going to talk about that as she's now running AI. She's running GrantOrb. And I was really excited to have Deepa on because I think in the world we live in, a lot of things subsist and survive off grants. And Deepa will give her amazing definition of what grants are when she comes up on stage. And I also just think this is a really great moment to continue to give the flowers and also our focus to AI. AI is not going away. As you will notice if you watch Future Signal, the focuses are probably going to be on blockchain, primarily Bitcoin, and AI, people that are using AI to move industries forward. And so when I saw that Deepa had founded GrantOrb, when I rebranded into Future Signal Podcast, this is only the third episode of the new brand, I knew that I had to do whatever I could to make sure that she was able to join us to talk about her company and to kind of talk about maybe how that fits into the grant writing world. No matter what business you've been in the past, you probably have access to grants. And so if you can now leverage AI, a new tool to be able to get grants and spend less time doing it, I think it's something that many, many people should tune into. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Deepa up on stage. And yeah, super excited. Deepa, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me well?
I can. You sound great. Thank you for also getting up early. I know that you are in the Pacific time zone, so it's a little early there. Let's just dive right in. I was super excited to have you on, and one of the things that you and I spoke about, and we'll get into this in some future slides, is that like you can use AI to write grants, but I was originally when I was thinking about the title, I was like, use AI to write grants for nonprofits because that is kind of the world that I come from. And I also, in the past couple of years, did work for a company, for-profit company that would help for-profit companies get government grants. They were kind of that bridge. And since I started working with them, I think I started with them in the pandemic, there were many of us that were like, the work we're doing right now is going to be replaced before we know by AI. So when I saw your product, when I saw GrantOrb, I was just like, this is absolutely amazing. And before we dive in and we get into the presentation, I kind of want to jump back and mention some of the stuff I said in the intro, which is like how we met. And how we met is intrinsically tied to our love for crypto. And I want to shout out the fact that you and I were both featured in the Giving Block's 100 people in impact in crypto philanthropy. I forget the exact names they have there. Um, so you're still probably in crypto on some level, probably on a bigger level than I probably understand. But talk to me about some of the transition, getting into Web3 and then seeing the opportunity and then, pivoting into AI.
Yeah, so I got into Web3 in 2021 when NFTs were exploding. Like it was all over the news in New York Times and stuff. And I have always been on X. It was known as Twitter before. And I was, one day, I just saw this tweet from the founder of Polygon saying he's going to be raising money for India. COVID was really bad at that point of time, like in 2021. And he's going to mobilize the funds in cryptocurrency. And I was like, how can he raise money in cryptocurrency? Because you actually need to buy real stuff. Like you need oxygen cylinders and you need beds and supplies for the hospital because that was the need of the hour. And he ended up raising over $1 billion in crypto. Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, donated like a meme coin, Shiba coin, worth $1 billion. And that campaign really got me into Web3 because I was curious to see how this money actually translates into real goods and services. And I've been in the nonprofit space forever. Like I've co-founded United Way Mumbai, and I'm very familiar with the scene in India. And I was curious to see how this all ends up. And I just started blogging from there on. I'm like, okay, guys, this is the campaign that's happening. I started my Substack. This was 2021. And I'm like, okay, nonprofits, I'm going to explain to you what Web3 is, and let's start with this campaign. So that was my entry point into Web3. It was pretty fascinating. I learned about stable coins and stuff because what they did was they took all that money and they put it into stable coins. And they didn't liquidate Shiba Coin immediately because it would have led to the downfall or the price going down. So the founder was pretty smart. Like, he's a crypto native, Sandeep, and he knew how to handle that donation. He slowly liquidated it, converted into USDC, got it into India, and he only worked with nonprofits that had the charitable a special status actually to receive foreign funding, because you need to have that special status in India to receive foreign funding. And he only worked with those nonprofits. A lot of them I know from my work at United Way. And it was amazing. And I was recently in India, like, again, and I wanted to follow up on that campaign, what's happened, because that happened in 2021. And what I learned was that $1 billion donation did do a lot of good. And by the time they actually had it in Indian rupees, it wasn't worth $1 billion, but it was still worth a lot of money. And they set up a fund to fund a lot of research in emergency health and stuff like that, that led to the a complete disaster when in 2021, when not crypto, but COVID spread, and a lot of people ended up in hospitals, and the hospitals weren't equipped to take care of people.
I don't think I knew that background, and that's a really powerful background, that basically you saw people using blockchain, right? NFTs, which is a part of the blockchain ecosystem. And you were like, whoa, I need to understand more, because I also have been in the nonprofit in the international development sector for a long time. So when I first saw Bitcoin, I was like, this is different. This changes everything. Because for years, and I'm still on the board of advisors for this nonprofit there in Guatemala, and I'm sure to this day, because of how bad the banking system is, both stateside and in Guatemala, many people are still, they bring down like 909, what's it, $9,990, right? So we don't get near the 10,000, and so you don't have to say anything. You can just bring that through the airport. It's exceedingly like precarious to do that, right? Because that amount of money will easily get you killed in almost every other part of the planet, including some parts of the United States, I guess. So when I saw that you could just move Bitcoin and you didn't need banks, and it was a permissionless thing, because when you
Exactly.
move money across, I mean, and I remember, maybe it was on this call, but I don't have a lot of experience with India. But I do know that there's certain permissions about bringing money into the country when it goes to nonprofits or NGOs. And that was always very interesting, because a lot of the nonprofits and NGOs that get money stateside, that are in Central America or South America, that are big, most of them are actually headquartered in the United States. So they still have that 501c3 status to honestly give people stateside the tax incentive. But I'm assuming if they didn't have that, I guess it gets kind of funky. But maybe that can push the conversation we have here. So okay, that was Web3. That was how you got into crypto. You saw the NFTs. You saw $1 billion. And I remember when Vitalik donated that. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Because at that
That's the
moment,
largest donation made on a single day. Actually, it was pretty historical. And yeah, I named my Substack Crypto Good because I wanted to track the good side of crypto. Many people don't know about the good side of crypto. So 2021 was a great year because also Bitcoin was made a legal tender in El Salvador. I wrote about that. I wrote about the backstory of how that happened. Like, there was a small beach community that adopted Bitcoin and started a circular economy. So yeah, it really got me excited into Web3, and I just started tracking it through my blog, just documenting all the good stuff in Web3.
yeah, the El Salvador announcement was huge because they had been building in El Zonte for a long time, relatively. And then so to have something be so grassroots to then take national policy is really quite crazy. El Salvador is a small country relatively, but that was insane. So 2021, crypto good. I think we probably meant 2021. I want to say actually 2022, when I was working for Mercy Corps doing crypto philanthropy for them. Talk to me then about the transition into the opportunity that looks like AI presented itself, and how you got into building what is GrantOrb. I don't have GrantOrb on the screen, but that is obviously the name of your project organization.
Yeah, so in 2022, early 2022, I did undertook a study on DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations, and I fundraised within Web3. There's a popular crowdfunding platform called Gitcoin, and I listed my project there, and I said, this is what I want to do, and I had like 140 people donate to me $1 each, and I ended up raising like tons of money through quadratic funding, which I won't get into it now. But then at the same time, I got familiar with the grants scene in Web3, which is big. Actually, the entire Web3 is powered by grants. There are so many grants. Almost quarterly and weekly, and every ecosystem, Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum, they're all giving out grants to people to encourage them to build in their ecosystem. And then there's Gitcoin, where you don't have to belong to any ecosystem, but if you have projects, like for me, what was great was that I wasn't building in any ecosystem, but I was writing about it. I was the media, and I was writing about it. And now wanted to write a book on DAOs, and I listed my project there, and I got funds. It's at that time that I realized that there's a real need in terms of people in Web3 aren't very good in communicating their projects, their ideas, because as a donor, when I wanted to go and donate to other projects, I'm spending like so much time just trying to figure out what is it they're trying to raise money for. It's so hard to figure that out. Like, you should be able to get that in quick 30 seconds. Okay, this is what they're raising funds for. But they would just drag on about the story or something else. And I'm like, the skill about grant writing, or just writing a proposal for that matter, doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. So that was my like awakening into the sense that what I probably possess from my background in the nonprofit sector. I've written tons of grants. I've fundraised from the government of Singapore. I've written and got grants from Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation. So I kind of knew how to communicate ideas, like how you have to be hard hitting, and how to write your problem statement, things like that. And then I'm trying to figure out reading other people's proposals, and I'm not getting a sense of anything. So I started offering my services for free. I said, hey guys, happy to look at your Gitcoin proposals and comment on it. And maybe this is how you need to restructure. And a lot of people on X would reach out to me, hey, this is my project on Gitcoin. What do you think about it? And I'm like, okay, you need to talk about the problem first before the solution. Like, what is it that you're trying to address? What are your goals? Be specific. So I started just giving that kind of advice to them. But that was still early 2022. AI wasn't around. Like, AI was there, but not the AI that we see today. So at the end, in November, I published my book, and we worked as a DAO. And I had to. We had limited budget, and I needed like an image for my book. I needed like a couple of things done, and obviously, being under budget operation, like a small budget operation, I was like, can we use any of this AI to create stuff? And I used Midjourney. Midjourney came out before ChatGPT. It is an image model where you can create stunning visuals. And I played around it with Midjourney, and I actually generated the image for our book using Midjourney. And it took me literally. Obviously, there was a bit of a learning curve in terms of generating great images, but it was free, and it took me a few seconds to generate an image. And otherwise, I would have stressed. I didn't even know how to go about the process of finding a graphics designer, or should I trust that person? What if he doesn't do the job as I expected to be? But I loved the fact that I was self-reliant. I could do it myself, and I can iterate on it, fast, and I got what I wanted. And so that was my introduction to AI in 2022. And so all this was happening, and then I got in late November 2022, like I think it was 30th of November, ChatGPT launched, and that was the first introduction the world got of what is to come. They all started chatting. I did so many chats with ChatGPT about blockchain and how blockchain can do good. In fact, I did an article for my Substack where I just interviewed ChatGPT, saying, okay, why should one use blockchain? What are the good things? So it was like a back and forth interview that I published in Substack, so which is pretty cool. So I was like, wow, this technology is fascinating. And how do we apply this technology to the nonprofit sector? Because that's the space I've always been in. And that was my entry point into Web3 as well, and into DAOs, because I thought DAOs are the future nonprofits. They will be formed on the internet and they will be using blockchain to it. So AI really caught my attention, and I was like, wow. And there is speed, like you can get things done fast. And in nonprofits, we're always struggling. We don't have money, we don't have people. So how do we help our friends there? And I have always worked at the intersection of tech and social impact. And I had friends from I worked with Salesforce Foundation, where I was leading philanthropy for them. And I had friends that I knew who were AI engineers, and they were looking for problems to solve. They were like, we have these skills, but where should we apply these skills? And I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you, there's a big market right here. We should build something to solve the problems in the social good space. And I explained to them the whole grants ecosystem. I'm like, listen, this grants are very time consuming. They take 50, 60 hours, depending upon the complexity of the grant. Sometimes it can take months to write one grant. And how about we solve the space, like build for the space, and something as magical as Midjourney, where you can do things fast. Because drawing or painting is also pretty time consuming, right? It also needs imagination, a lot of imagination. So that's how I got my two friends interested in building for the space. And we built
Wow.
GrantOrb.
Yeah, that you said so many things there. One of the things I first want to call out is the first episode we did was with Brian Naughton, and he came on and shared all of the art that he's created and photos he's created on Midjourney. And the other thing that you said there, which I just think is something that's definitely tied to, I get really weary about generations and age, but like there's a younger feel about it, which is like, I want to be able to do this thing myself, not have to rely on third parties, and iterate exceedingly quick. And on the last episode with Grant Nadu, who I believe is probably out there, he said, yeah, buddy, in the chat, is using tools that allow you to do that, where you don't need to hire a designer. You can just start growing and moving on this as fast as you want. And there's tons of tools now on the internet to allow you to do that. And I think that's really powerful. And to think of GrantOrb in that way, especially as you said, basically there's so many organizations, there's so many projects want to get off the ground, and they don't have the budget. Well, GrantOrb can step in and really provide that service. Super cool. And I wasn't, because I was always interested about your pivot from crypto to AI, and we had kind of talked about it, but I was like, save it for this, save it for the live. And I just want to call it right now. I have a presentation up on screen if you're listening to this on a podcast platform. You may want to go check this out on YouTube. We're going to have some visuals. And then towards the end of the episode, Deepa is going to do a demo. She's going to do a live demo of what GrantOrb looks like, how easy it is to use. So calling that out, but let's dive right into the slideshow here. And one of the first things is just defining two terms. Let's first define AI, and then let's define grants. So for you, define AI, please.
So the AI that is basically the AI that we all are talking about is called generative AI. So the generative AI is basically, the more technical term for it is large language models. So all of the humanities knowledge that we have collectively produced on the internet since the dawn of the internet has been taken and been put into these large language models. So it knows almost everything. It is like and is AI is now like a domain expert of everything, has the super knowledge of everything, and this is the knowledge now that we have access to. Think of it as like a computer brain, kind of like a human brain, but much more faster in processing information, much more faster in seeing information, than we can probably see. And so that's AI, that's generative AI that is going to change how we work.
Cool. And I just want to start off because I think this is something I want to do in every episode. If there's buzzwords or words that are part of the title or part of the overall narrative, it's good that we take the time just to call it what they are. And did I skip ahead? I did. Oh my gosh. Wow. One day I'll figure out how to use the slideshow. Let's define grants next.
So grants basically means free money, right? So this is money for you that you don't have to repay, but you need to report on it. So that's what grants are. Mostly the nonprofit sector is where the grants are pretty standard, because all nonprofit organizations rely on grants for their operations, since they don't generate their own revenue. And to do good, sometimes you can't make money all the time. Like certain services just needs to be given out for free. So they rely on grants as a way to fund their operations. But there are also grants for research institutions, for civil, like arts and museums, which are also nonprofit organizations. They get a status, nonprofit status. There are grants for startups too, which I actually got introduced recently. Since now that I'm in the grant space, I figured the space is huge. It's not just nonprofits, but there are tons of small businesses and startup grants that are available to businesses. So there are those kind of grants as well. And it's literally, take this money, spend it the way you promised in your proposal that you're going to do, what you're going to do with this money, and just report to us on how you've spent this money. That's it.
Perfect. Free money, easy for everyone to understand. And this is, you had sent me over some information and I took it and did the best that I could to put it into a slideshow. And you said grants the lifeline of growth and innovation. When you're talking to organizations, companies, anyone that wants grants, is it always for growth and innovation? And the reason why I ask that is maybe it's just for maintenance. Maybe we've had this program going on in this city and we want to just keep it going. So I kind of wanted to ask in those buckets, what, of the people that come to use GrantOrb, or also in your experience, your vast experience with nonprofits, I see maybe three buckets: growth, innovation. I guess there's probably four: maintenance, and maybe survival. But when you think of GrantOrb, what are the ways in which people are leveraging the technology to be able to move their projects forward? Is it growth, innovation, maintenance, survival, something else?
Yeah, actually, for nonprofits, it's survival, because without grants, they can't sustain. They will seriously have to close down their operations. And sometimes the grant money is to initiate a program, so and then maintain it. But most of the donors are very interested in knowing what will happen to this project once the grant money is over, because you don't want to just take this money, do something for 2 years, and after that, there's no grant, there's no program. You don't want that. So a lot of people do find other ways to sustain the programs, maybe go raise money from some other donor and sustain it, or figure out a small fee-based model or something to actually get the program going. But most of the times when donors give out grant money, they're expecting to scale that impact. They're expecting to not just, yeah, it's sometimes maintenance, but most of the time they're looking that it can be replicated somewhere else. This is something we've given you. Let's see what comes out of it. If it's great, let's replicate it. Let's scale it. For businesses, it's really great, because when they get grant funding, they can build in peace. They don't have to worry about a venture capitalist hanging on their head saying, we gave you money. Now you got to start telling us what's happening. When is your first customer coming? When is this? They don't have to do any of that. With grants, they have the freedom and the liberty to build the way they want to build that organization. And at a certain point, they can start maximizing for profit or whatever it is. So it's really great for startups too, and there are tons of startup grants available in the United States. I recently learned from a friend of mine who was down from Silicon Valley. He's also building an AI startup, and he was like, hey, have you looked into a certain acronym he gave me? I'm like, no. He's like, oh, so many of my friends are looking to apply for that grant. You should definitely get that application onto GrantOrb, because it will really help unlock funding for a lot of other startups. So yeah, grants are great for startups too, because you can really build in peace.
Yeah, and just continue on that. I think it's really good to have this list of organizations, or organizations, I want to say frameworks to do good, frameworks to move things forward. You have, and I'll just read through, and then if you want to touch up, I know you probably want to touch upon a couple of these, but nonprofits, small businesses, Web3 projects, educational organizations, healthcare organizations, arts and cultural institutions, research institutions, and innovators. You had mentioned wanting to talk about Web3 projects, and I know your work with Gitcoin is probably definitely worth calling out, because they're one of the biggest. They're also probably one of the most successful Web3 projects I've seen as far as navigating the bear market and coming out the other side. 99% of projects that I heard about in 2020 and 2021 didn't make it. And that's also just kind of the way of the internet, the way of technology, the way of innovation. But yeah, do you want to touch here upon Web3 projects?
Yeah, so Web3 has tons of grants. So I have been steeped into this ecosystem in the grants ecosystem since 2022, and it has only grown. In the bear market, the only thing that was happening was giving out grants, basically. That's what kept the whole Web3 economy going. That's how most of the DAOs, uh, get their money, and then they pay their people in crypto. And so that's basically a circular economy of sorts. And grants are a way to invite developers and and just other people who are helping grow the ecosystem, like media houses and other players in the space, to come and talk about their projects, and if their projects are compelling enough, they get grant money. And so obviously this crowdfunding campaigns, which or crowdfunding platforms like Gitcoin and Giveth, where you can go and fundraise from people. And Gitcoin is really great because they apply quadratic funding, which is something like the more people that donate to your project, the more money you get from the matching pool. So they go and raise something called a matching pool. So Gitcoin also does fundraising, in the sense they have to get this matching pool, which is of significant amount, and then and the projects who are fundraising on the platform, if they have more donors, not necessarily more money raised, but more donors that they can raise, it shows that there are more people interested in this project, and so they will assign more money from the funding pool, the matching pool, basically, which is called quadratic funding. It's the way to democratize access to funding, that it doesn't always have to go to people who have accounts who are giving them more money. But even if you donate $1, but if you have 100 people, it shows that you are better recipient of the matching pool, because that's your strong signal.
Yeah, when I was at Mercy Corps, we had some connectivity with Gitcoin, and when I learned about quadratic funding, it made a lot of sense. In this past election, I think Elon gave like 160 million or 170 million to the Trump campaign, and it's like that's one person, but it would have been more impressive if 170 different people had given a million. And I love that that's how the funding apparatus in Gitcoin is basically works. So if they have, from what I understand, if they have 5 projects that they're trying to fund, one project gets $1 million from one person, but one other project gets $300,000 from divided up over 100 people, right? We each give 3,000. They're going to be more likely to give more preference to that project that has more basically community buy-in and more
Exactly.
human inertia, right? Which democratizes the funding. And I just think is absolutely, that's exciting. It's exciting that those types of things are happening in Web3. So
And yeah,
the
and
other,
Mercy Corp, like you guys also give out funds for crypto projects. Like I absolutely love the idea that how you're encouraging blockchain innovation at the grassroots level by funding projects for in the emerging markets, and you are chain agnostic, because what happens in within Web3 is that you have to be building for a certain chain, and so even if you have a really great project but it is, say, not on Optimism, then you can't apply for funding from Optimism. So sometimes that can be pretty restrictive for people who are doing amazing work. But organizations like Mercy Corp, you can, they don't care about what chain you're building on, as long as you are addressing the problems for the people in the emerging markets. You can get a pool of money from us.
yeah, and just calling that out, Mercy Corps Ventures, they have a crypto for good fund, which I actually saw on GrantOrb, which was super cool. And they also, I think they've launched an AI for good fund, which
Hmm.
is or something like that. If you're using AI and you're in the emerging markets, you can apply for money, which I just think is awesome. So let's go on to the next slide here. Grant writing reality. And I'll let you kind of run through this. This once
Yeah,
again was something you
it's
sent over, and I read through and I was like, yep.
it's a nightmare, trust me. People who've done grants, they suffer from PTSD. Every time you show them next grant, they're like, no, I'm losing my sleep. I don't think I can do this. Literally, it is that bad. Yeah, these are just the steps, like grant search itself is overwhelming. So as a nonprofit fundraiser, I used to spend significant amount of time just searching for grants that align with my cause, because how the donors are, like, they will state what are they giving objectives, and we only give for these causes and stuff. And so obviously there are tons of donors, but just going through that entire the landscape and just figuring out the grants that are aligned for your cause itself is a pretty big, huge task. And once you figure out, so that's basically the grant search process. Once you know, okay, there are these 20 people who are, say, funding sanitation, then you need to see if you fit into the eligibility. And sometimes people just get excited. They see money, they're like, oh, like I've seen this happen in Web3, like for the Crypto for Good Fund. They're like, oh, 100,000 funding. I'm going for it. I'm going to go apply for it. But I'm like, do you even qualify? Like, okay, you are building in Web3, but are you building a solution on the blockchain? Like, they need a technical solution. I know you are there, but you're not really building a technical solution. So there is eligibility confusion too. Like, people say, okay, are we kind of there, but maybe we should go apply for this. And so what donors end up getting is like thousands of applications just to figure out only 100 applications are in alignment with the eligibility. We've AI powered that process. So people who actually use our platform to write grants, they can do a quick eligibility check. And if it's all red, 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 that means you're not a good fit. But if it's a mix of green and red, obviously you shouldn't have any red, like we show in colors, like how you're aligned. But if you're like a shade of lighter green, means you're aligned, but maybe you need to make your alignment stronger. So that's an opportunity for them to strengthen that part of their proposal. And then just writing, once you figure out your eligibility, okay, you are eligible for this grant, you've got to now write it. And writing itself is pretty time consuming process. It is like, so there are two type of questions they ask. One is straightforward questions, name your organization, when were you founded, da da da. And then there are these long narrative essay style questions, and that is time consuming. That takes so much time. Like, sometimes it can take just months to get the words on the paper, for it. And then there's a process of aligning with different team members. One is implementing the project, you need to go talk to that person. Then you need to do line item budgeting, like list out every expense for that project. We now auto generate line item expense items for that project. So it's basically no time spent on doing that. So we've really made it smooth and easy, but this is traditionally how it's done. It's like really complex, and then people don't have the skill sets. They that's as I said, I thought everybody knows how to write grants, but in Web3 I learned people don't know how to write grants. They can't communicate. They will not talk about the problem, or they will, you need to really make the problem sound very compelling. You need to provide data points. You need to say 2.6 billion people in the world do not have access to sanitation. That makes your problem very compelling. People don't do that. They don't talk about the specifics. Okay, we need money, but how are you going to actually use the money? You're going to reach out to 100 villages. How many people are you going to reach out? Be specific about it. They'll be vague about it. They don't want to commit to anything. So it's a specialized skill, and a lot of people don't know how to do that. Budgeting, as I said, oh my gosh, it takes like just a couple of weeks to put together the budget. And I didn't even mention there, but along with the grant application, you need to send 5 or 6 other things, like your list of board members, your past 3 years audited reports. There are like so much more that goes, which is like a standard set of documents that needs to go. But if a nonprofit is organized, they'll probably keep that document in a folder on their desktop somewhere. But a lot of times they don't, and then they are like pulling all this information from different parts of the organization. And so it's a very costly process. Sometimes a lot of big organizations, they actually use grant consultants. I didn't even know that there are these set of people who are there to just assist nonprofits in North America write grants. It's a big industry. There's a small, and therefore the small ones who can't afford the executive directors. Sometimes there's just executive director and 3 other 4 people, and they can't afford. Sometimes they don't participate in the process. So they're scared of this, and this is like a valuable stream of funding for a lot of organizations. So it's unfair. The way it is, it's not democratic at this point of time. Only the ones who can afford to hire people whose only role is to sit and write grants, or who can outsource it, are able to participate in the system.
That was one of the things I wanted to say. in all my experience with nonprofits. So you have a nonprofit, whatever size it is, but I've seen nonprofits take 5 to 10% of their annual budget dedicated, probably more actually, dedicated to basically people who are paid to just get more money. And that seems like a huge waste of resources when, for using that much money, couldn't that money go to the end beneficiary who is part of the 2.6 billion that maybe don't have proper water and sanitation and hygiene services and access? So it always seemed crazy to me. And one of the things that I think even happened looking at nonprofits in COVID is everything flipped really quick. A couple things happened. In 2016, Donald Trump got elected, and especially for the nonprofits that I was talking to and working with that were out of Guatemala or the Golden Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, they all of a sudden just felt squeezed because a lot of money just wasn't coming down there anymore because the Trump administration was just not really into supporting them anymore. It was an American first policy, which we're actually going back into, which is going to be interesting. And then the other thing, 4 years later, 2020, the pandemic happens. There were a couple nonprofits that I still have, decent connections with, but they would live and die by their annual gala, right? Where they're going to spend $50,000 and they're going to try to go out and raise $400,000 to $600,000, right? And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, that's ridiculous. So when COVID happened, I remember they had their annual gala. They did it online. They spent nothing compared to getting the place, getting the food, getting the music, getting all the things you need to put on a proper event at a higher level to get a higher ticket, and they got the same amount of money. And it just like broke everything. And they were like, "Oh, maybe we don't have to do this, this show put on as a jester in the court for people. People at the end of the day do just want to move their economic energy into something that's helping." So this is part and parcel of that. And I do think nonprofits in general are exceedingly not efficient. And having now worked at for-profit companies, the driver of profit is very, very efficient driven, right? The Pencils of Promise is an organization. They're global, and I forget their founder, but he gave a great YouTube. And if I can find it, I'll put it in this episode. But he was like, he's like, this is why nonprofits are so inefficient, because they can be. Because it's like, okay, well, we didn't do it this quarter. Maybe we'll get to it next quarter. So the grant is part and parcel of that entire
They're not metrics driven, and that's why when you write grant proposals you need to put numbers, you need to be specific. And
quantitative. Yeah.
Yeah, and also because they're reliant on grants, and sometimes they're just fulfilling the donors' terms of conditions, rather than the donor saying, "Hey, take this unrestricted pool of money and spend it the way you want to, where the need is maximum." So the system is broken. I'm just trying to fix a broken system with AI. It is, and I actually highly encourage all nonprofit organizations to have a revenue model as well, because it is so important that you should have a blended model, have grants and have revenues, and make it accessible. Like for me, I think I'm a social entrepreneur, and I think I'm running a social enterprise because we were very conscious about how we price our GrantOrb proposals generation. We wanted to make it affordable, to people, so that they don't feel the pinch of writing, and but it's so important to generate the revenue to sustain your operations, because at the end of the day we're providing high quality proposal generation, like a really smooth experience. So wherever it's possible, like you can still charge for your services, but be accessible and affordable for your demographic, basically whoever's your demographic. And if it's really, really poor people's, they can also sometimes pay, like there's a whole field of social enterprises in the social goods space that is actually just powered by a business model. They don't have grants are a way for growth and innovation. It's a way for them to build uh, in peace without having to worry about venture capitalists.
Sounds like a dream. The impact of poor grant writing. Maybe just run through this quick, and then I think we can dive right into the demo, which I know I'm super excited about.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're just manually tracking the grants and you miss opportunities, you miss deadlines, if if you're not very efficient, so low call, even if you put in effort to write the whole grant proposal, but you didn't ensure that you actually met the eligibility criteria, then it's basically no grant for you, right? So a lot of times, as I said, people get excited seeing the money and they're like, let's send in an application, but have you actually read the eligibility like line by line to make sure? Have you even figured out the project that you're proposing? Will they be excited about it? They don't think, and they just write it, and it's not written well, and they send it, and they spend like 4 weeks writing it, and then the result is obviously no grant. Obviously team burnout is there. Like every time I've written grants, I wanted to, I mean, I when I worked with a very small nonprofit in Singapore, I only worked with them for a year, and I wrote 4 grants, and I'm like, listen, I can't do more than 4 grants because it is so time consuming. But now with AI, you can write like a grant a day, literally, without feeling the burnout. So it is a very just mind sucking process. I'm just telling you, it just takes your focus away from the real mission. Your real mission is to do the work, be out there and do the work that you signed up for and you started the nonprofit for. But then once you are in this space, you suddenly realize all these bureaucratic process you need to go through to be able to even do the work you want to do. There aren't people standing at your door and saying, hey, take this money. You got to sit and write for weeks proposals, and then wait and see when the money comes. Till that time, you're just bootstrapping it yourself. For real people, who want to do real good, it's really hard. And so that's a goal, to make it really easy for them. And then sometimes there are people who come in, like for instance, the guy I worked in Singapore for, like he hired me as a fundraiser. He's like a really global figure. Like there's a movie made on him and stuff. Jack Sim, he's a social entrepreneur, world-renowned social entrepreneur. He's in the World Economic Forum almost every year. And I was there for a year. I wrote 4 grants. I actually wrote 5 grants. We won 4 grants. After that, I quit. I joined Salesforce Foundation in Singapore, and since then, he hasn't been able to find someone who can write grants that great and win him grants. And so he's now just relying on in-kind donations and leveraging his network to just give in kind specialized knowledge, but he's not able to raise money. Like it is hard. So once people leave, then the founder or the social entrepreneur is just, they've not learned to write grants. This is not their job. And so that's it. And these are all the impact of not being able to write grants. You just basically have no money to grow.
Yeah, and I'm going to read these out just in case people are listening to this strictly on a podcast platform. So it says impact of poor grant writing, missed opportunities and deadlines, lower quality applications due to time pressure, team burnout from inefficient processes, inconsistent messaging across applications, knowledge lost when staff members leave, difficulty scaling grant operations. One of the things that second to last one, the knowledge lost when staff members leave. One of the things that AI has done, and this is why this is why it has been disruptive, why it is disruptive, why it's going to continue to be disruptive, is because it's disrupting things that for a long time were seen as jobs that were kind of like you needed an apprenticeship. It took experience to gain an understanding to be able to do. When Midjourney comes in and it can design you an image for a book that maybe a graphic designer would have had to study for, or at least put in near 10,000 hours to do it, it breaks the mold. It just like changes the way we think about time to product, time to iteration, I guess is probably better. And that's what I see GrantOrb doing. So awesome. I think if we can go and let me just make sure there's no other fun slide. Yes, the GrantOrb AI grant writer demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and share another screen and please walk us through what this looks like. So let me turn this one down and turn this one on, and we're going to go to a different screen here so we get the full screen. Yes, please go ahead. I'm in your hands. I'm really excited about this.
Okay, great. By the way, this video that you see on my homepage is generated with AI.
Wow.
It's just an image that I use, which basically talks. It's my talking head now, and
literally a
and
talking
and I didn't. And all the audio that you hear, I actually just typed the words and it converted into speech. So it's pretty crazy. We use AI for everything. Just almost everything. So yeah, it's this is where all the magic is. This is you go here and this is the wizard. You tell the wizard what is it that you're seeking funding for. Okay, you can be
Can we come up with something? Can we play around?
yeah. Tell me what do you need money
Okay.
for?
So because I'm living in Colombia, and actually, as soon as we're done recording, I'm flying to Bogota. Let's
Okay.
look for new some funding for either WASH, and if you're in development, you know exactly what that means,
Hmm.
or something to do with nutrition or IDPs, internally displaced persons in Colombia. Is there a way to search and just
Yeah, yeah. So you need funding to support internally displaced people in Colombia.
yeah, or
Support.
some kind of a nutrition project or a WASH project? I'm just throwing stuff
Okay.
at a wall
Okay.
just to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Need grant to um, support.
This is pretty ASMR. And I asked Deepa to turn on her computer mic so everyone's hearing your keyboard. This is some deep ASMR. The first time I've had that on Future Signal. And while you're typing that, I really wanted to rebrand into Future Signal because I think it's important that some of the noise in AI can be really scary, and it's like, oh, this is all going to replace us. And I really want to highlight the things that are going to allow us to be better at what we already do. And I think if an organization can go out and get a grant, basically iterate to get that money quicker, that's a win. So, anyways, okay. So, and I can't read necessarily what you wrote. Let me,
Okay,
let me,
I just said
yeah.
need grant to support internally displaced people in Bogota.
Okay,
Is
sweet.
yeah, and so basically, this is where you describe the project that you're seeking funding for. You can be more elaborate if you want to. Like you can say, our goal is to reach X number of people, or we want to support them for 1 year, or whatever. You can provide more specifics related to the project that you want to seek funding for.
Hmm.
And spelling mistakes are fine. You don't have to structure your thoughts. Think of it as dumping your thoughts here. It's like a dump of your thoughts for which you're
Okay.
seeking funding. And once you're done, just say create outline. And AI will use this information to create an outline for this. This is a winning grants template, by the way. So if you've never written grant, if you use this
Okay.
template, it's a winning proposal template. It has almost, it has actually all the questions that donors ask for, which is basically what is the problem you're solving, what is your solution, the goals and objectives, plan of action, project deliverables, team members. I can just say this is something that you have to copy paste, but if you set up a team account on GrantOrb, it automatically applies, so you don't have to put team members all the time.
Okay.
Project head, I can just say here.
So if you create your account on GrantOrb and you and I have a nonprofit and there's 10 team members, we would just load in all the team members' names, bios, backgrounds, whatever we need. So that way it's kind of like it just auto populates like many websites do when like the way you can save a credit card, for example, in the
Yes,
Google file.
it auto applies. Yes.
Okay, cool,
Uh,
cool.
and the partnerships impact, and obviously organization information is something also you can save when you're creating a team account. You can talk about your past records, what you've done, establish your competency in delivering this kind of project. But say, I'll just say Bogota cares.
I love how as you're typing this as well, up in the progress bar, I can see it move. That's just like a very a very pleasing thing to see, you know?
Yeah, so we've designed this for the nonprofit sector because I come from this space. And with Salesforce Foundation, I've actually given out technology for free. And I've seen how technology doesn't get adopted if it's not simple. So the user interface is like really to make it as simple as possible, so that nobody gets confused. Like anybody, like an 80-year-old can write a grant, without any confusion. So just to guide them through the process. And once you're done, you can actually attach a file here if there of the grant guidelines that talks about the eligibility criteria. You can copy paste it here and do a quick eligibility check. And we basically, what we do is in red or green color and a one line summary, we say how this outline or this little information that it populated, which is your project details, whether it's an alignment or not. Um, and once you're done, so what the AI has done is basically you've described your project here in the wizard. The AI has auto populated this template, your role is to read the 2 or 3 lines here and make sure it's in alignment with what you intend to do. uh, all the expertise has been baked into the system, so you don't have to think about the things. It will give you metrics. It's your job to see if these are the number of families you want to reach. If you want to reach more, you adjust that. If you want to reach less people, adjust that. Make sure the timelines of implementation are in alignment with what you want to do. So basically, just read through uh, uh, these couple of sentences that are there below each of the sections. Once you're satisfied with all of that, you've entered your organization information, the team members that will be involved in the project. Just go here and say, generate the grant. And this step basically takes 3 minutes, but the AI is actually writing the proposal for you using the information that it sees in the outline. It will build on that information uh, that you put like minimally, about the project that you want to do.
And so this may be faster than the 3 minutes just because we've just made this up as a hypothetical. We didn't give the wizard a lot. Is that accurate? Like this, the amount of time it takes to render will be equal to the size of the grant, or because this is moving
No,
faster than 3 minutes.
yeah, it's not necessary. The thing is, you can give wizard more information about the specifics of your grant, like just about who the audience is, the target group that you aim to reach. You can be more
Mhm.
specific, but you can always say you've just started with that one line. You can always go back and iterate on this. It's written the problem statement. It's talked about the solution. Say you want to change things here. You want to talk more about the problem, like you want to give more context about the problem. You can go back. You can do simple edits right here if you want to, but
Yeah.
you can also do AI update with AI. So you go back here, and you add more context here. Say what about the problem statement you want to give. You want to talk about, give more details, like in terms of numbers or something. You can talk about that. But by the way, in about a week's time, we're going to be shipping data points and citations. So the problems right now, we don't provide data points because we want to be 100% sure that the data is sourced from a particular place. So we built in that feature, and soon the problem statement will come with data points, and it will talk about, like, say 2.6 billion people without sanitation as per World Health Organization. So we will support it, but right now what we ask nonprofits or whoever's writing is that you provide that data. So say you want to include that data here. You want to change your plan of action. Plan of action is great, but you want to project deliverables is great. Say you want to change your timelines and milestones. You want to put, instead of months, you want to actually say Jan to Feb or March to April, or whatever way you want to do it. You can come and make these changes here, and you can go down again. And oh, this is all the line item budget. So we don't cost it, but we provide all the related expenses that will go to do this project. So all you got to do is put an amount next to this, and for how much duration, and that's your line item budgeting. And this feature, actually, one of our users requested this feature. We didn't have line item budgeting before, but they were like, hey, we've never done line item budgeting. How do you do it? I'm like, instead of me teaching you, let's just get AI to do it. So, and then I just we have a note just telling them that just put the duration and the amount and next to each of these items, and that's it. That's your line item budgeting. And this actually, just anticipating all the expenses, takes time. Like when I was doing the budget for my Impact DAO book, I actually got a grant from Filecoin Foundation as well. And I remember spending like literally 2 weeks and going back and forth with my DAO team on Discord, trying to figure out all the potential expenses that we'll have. Like maybe we thought we'll do NFTs. Obviously we need to visualize everything. Like, so we costed for some person to do visualization, and there were things that we didn't thought of those expenses, but those expenses took place. But AI already has the knowledge based on the nature of the project in terms of what are the kind of expenses that are going to take place. So you don't have to spend time doing that. Anyways, you can make all those changes, come back and say, I'm ready to generate the grant proposal. Uh, and you can update this multiple times, and all the versions will appear here on the top, and you can see the version 1, 2, 3. So it's kind of like iterating, like how you iterate on images. But you don't
This is
need to. But I don't think people need to do more than 3 iterations max. like if they need to. But say you didn't give the project much of a thought and you just began with that one line sentence, and now you want to iterate on it, you can do that.
This is really impressive. I'm
And
pretty
oh, by the
blown
way,
away.
we've also trained an AI to customize the templates for different grant applications. So, for instance, every donor, like I showed you a winning grant template, but what every donor has, that they have their own style of putting out that information. Sometimes they will call they will say project description. Now, what does project description mean? A lot of people don't know, but it is basically describe what you're going to be doing and why you're going to be doing, right? So there are different ways they seek that information. So we want people to feel comfortable, like as if they're actually filling out that application form. So we've trained an AI where you can customize any application form, any grant application form, and create a template that mirrors that. So for instance, this Crypto for Good fund, and this is their template. This is which AI generated it, and my job was to make sure AI actually captured all the questions. So if I had to do this manually, it would have taken me like 3 or 4 days. Not 3 or 4 days, actually, half a day to basically manually mirror the template, manually type it out. But AI does it, and I just check the work of AI, and my work is done in like 10 minutes. So our goal is for next year is to populate all the templates of different donors in North America, US, and Canada, and have it available on GrantOrb so people can just come, take the template, fill it out, and then go and apply it. Obviously, they just have to copy the information and put it in the submission, form of that organization. But this is what it is. You can use this to write this. And we obviously, AI also extracts the eligibility criteria, and so you can also run an eligibility check on this application.
I'm really glad that you called out the Crypto for Good Fund. Mercy Corps Ventures, which is tied to Mercy Corps, is probably the leader in development for using AI and blockchain to solve real world problems. I don't think there's many other orgs that can even argue with that. So I'm really glad that that's front and center. What I want to do right now is jump right into questions and answers, because what you've just said actually ties into the question that we first have here. So going back to this slideshow, we've got questions and answers, and then what I'm trying to do every episode is the previous guest asks the next guest a question. So let's start there. I'm going to ask you this question, and then I actually have a couple questions, and then I'll give you a chance to ask the next guest a question. So Grant, last week, I was talking to him about on the episode, I was like, hey, Deepa's coming on. This is what she's using. She's created this amazing portal where you can hop on and you can, if you're looking for grants, you can use AI to help you write grants. So it's easier. And he said something that you just kind of touched upon, which is like, as you scale, right, this is going to be successful. And thousands of people are going to be using it every day to write their grants. How is there going to be that like oversight from humans, still humans, to be able to ensure quality, whether that's in the new grants that get put up there, where you're going to be able to, like you said, with the Mercy Corps for Good for grant, Crypto for Good, grant, you were able as a human to just go through and just kind of just make sure. How are you thinking as this grows? And I say that because, as you know, whether it's a social enterprise or it's a for-profit business, sometimes people's success can crush them because they can't continue to keep up the quality. And so is there a way also, and this isn't part of his question, this is now a caveat to this, is there a way that you are moving slower to ensure that doesn't happen?
So the grants written by AI are actually pretty high quality. They are, because I've also been on the other side writing grants the traditional way, and when I compare, they are like, whoa, so much more that I never thought in terms of just the grant, the design, the proposal design that AI knows that my brain could think of, and I save immense amount of time not having to think about the impact and project deliverables, because AI already knows based on the project that I'm going to be doing. So AI is pretty good at writing, and AI is pretty good at super thinking, that we humans can't. So the quality of grants are great. I think what is important for us is that we continue to maintain close communications with our users, because we learn a lot from them in terms of design, like just simplifying the product for them. Like, how can we make it more magical for them? And so this year, like, I have been it's been a weird year in the sense a lot of our users, it's a self-serve platform, they've bought and they've not a lot of them don't want to talk about it, that you're using AI right now. But a lot of them I'm in touch with, and we talk back and forth, and sometimes they just create grants in front of me. They have, like, today's the deadline. I actually had an ED generate a grant in 10 minutes, while the submission of the grant took her 3 hours because the site kept crashing. So I'm like, that's amazing. It's not I can't help you there, but I wish I could. In the middle, she's like, shucks, Deepa, you gotta be here. I need to go park my car somewhere else, or I'll be like fine. Then I'm like, okay. She just wanted me for moral support. I'm like, see, that's the PTSD, like, I need you to
Does
be there.
does GrantOrb offer that? That's the human touch. You'll hop on a
Exactly.
call and give
I will
emotional
hop on a
support.
call. I will. That's the human touch. So this is something that I learned from her. This pricing, what you see is new, that we iterated on almost like being 6 months into this, where we saw a lot of people being skeptical. Like, I spoke to a lot of people and they're like, okay, and then but it's like, okay, maybe next year we'll use it. And I'm like, why? Like, aren't you sure AI can't do this? Like there was a little bit of skepticism about AI being able to do it. They still trust the human. So the new pricing is AI plus human, where I'm going to be there. AI is doing the job. I'm there to just give you the moral support. Or maybe just check
I
it. Or you want to just have a conversation about the grant. Okay, I'll do that. You just want to say, hey, this is the grant that's come out. What do you think about it? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll read it. And so it's really great because I learn from them, and they get the emotional support that they need.
so
So
yeah. So basically, GrantOrb is an AI agent for you
yeah.
in as many ways. You just send it around to help people, and then when they want to text you, you WhatsApp them
Yeah,
for like
and
30
and and
minutes.
I'm on every platform actually. I actually get after their live. I'm like, I'm happy to get on a call. They're like, and they won't respond for 30 minutes, and I'm texting them again. I'm like, I can be on the call now because I really want to know their pain points. I want to help them. I want to see where they're getting stuck. Oh, what's going on in their mind? Like, as a person, like, who is designing and giving feedback to my engineers, I want to, and sometimes my engineers, like, we didn't have like a notification that says it's been saved initially. Like, everything that they're doing is getting auto saved. And I'm like, one of the feedback from a girl I got, like, she's like, I filled this out and I kept the window open because I wasn't sure if it's getting saved.
Mhm.
And I talked to my engineers, and it's like, no, it saves, auto saves from day one. But I'm like, you've not communicated that to the customer. You need to say saved. You need to say saved,
Yeah.
because you fill in details and people don't want to lose the information they just typed, even if it's one line sentence.
Yeah.
So you need to give them that. So it's really great because I pass on that information. And in blockchain, what happens is the mostly engineers designing the product without being in touch with the users. So the product turns out to be so complicated most of the time that the users can never use it. So I'm like that bridge between my engineers and the users.
Well, I feel like out of Web3 and crypto, you learn the two most important things, which are you have to communicate the message and you have to create a good UX UI experience, or you will fail. Because that I see that in the layout of everything. We are little over time, but let's just wrap up here. My question is the pricing. People are watching this, they're listening to this on the replay, and they want to, they want to start using this. They at least want to hop in and play around. What does the pricing look like? Is there like a free trial for someone who's interested and curious?
Yeah, so they can totally come and type in the wizard a description what they are seeking funding for, and see how the AI uses that information to auto populate the outline for the proposal. They can do it for any of the grants that are listed, but in order to generate the full proposal, because we charge for generation of documents,
Gotcha.
they need to pay for it, and so we have couple of plans on our website. They can either go for the learning plan, which is basically write one proposal and you get my services as well in terms of my time, 30 minutes of my time. And or you can pick up a bundle of 10, 50, or 100. Our goal is to get people to write more. I know it's a thinking differently, like can we write more? Because sometimes people still think, oh, we can only do 10 grants. But no, actually next year we want them to aim higher. We want them to do 1,000 grants. So you can do more. And so you can pick up a bundle of 50 or 100, and then the cost comes down dramatically. If it's 100, it's like $26 per grant proposal, something like that. So it is pretty reasonable. Our market is mostly North America, but anybody in the emerging markets, if they feel the pinch of the price, feel free to reach out to me. But yeah, this is a very affordable. And most of our users are mostly small organizations. They aren't the big ones because they feel the pinch and they feel the pain of writing grants. So our all our users are actually small nonprofits.
Yeah, if you can get 20 a grant done, executed for $26, you get up to 100. That's under $3,000. You basically have a grant writer that doesn't need benefits, that is always around and doesn't take holidays and doesn't go on vacation and doesn't get COVID. Having spent my time in nonprofits and smaller nonprofits, less than $1 or $2 million normally operating expense, even smaller, that is a bargain. So this is really great to hear that you're aligning the pricing, as you said earlier, you're aligning the pricing to the need, so you can, align. Let's see. Okay. Ben Abel said, "Way to go, Deepa." That was the
Yeah.
comment that was left, and that's going to cover you up. So we're going to get that off there. I think we're the last thing is you need to ask the next guest a question so you can leave your mark on the podcast here. I'm having on Hugh Aprile. He runs actually the Latin American portfolio for Mercy Corps, but we're probably going to be talking about Bitcoin and humanitarian work. So really, really at the, yes, Bitcoin, but blockchain and humanitarian work. So do you have any question for Hugh around Bitcoin, humanitarian work? I'm not sure if he's coming on with his Mercy Corps cloak or if he's coming on as just Hugh, the Bitcoiner and humanitarian. But yeah, what question would you have for Hugh for next week?
Yeah, what are some of the success stories in terms of I would say like in projects? Like I know a lot of people hold cryptocurrencies, but that's on their individual initiatives, because there is a real need for them to hold cryptocurrencies since their own currency is really in bad shape. But as real projects that are taking place on the ground, are there any success stories?
I love that. It will be in next week's episode. Deepa, I want to thank you for hopping on and talking about GrantOrb. I'm assuming I'm going to leave all of you're going to have to send me all your socials because I know you're everywhere, which is beautiful. I love that as a podcast host, so it's everywhere. But I'll leave the website, grantorb.com, and I'll leave any other socials that are tied to GrantOrb. But I want to thank you for hopping on. And, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. You listen to this on a podcast platform, please subscribe. Make sure you're following us at Future Signal Pod. We go live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then I try to get the episode out the following Sunday. So that way it's out to the world. And that way because a lot of people still engage with podcasts, through Spotify and Apple. I know that YouTube definitely has its hold on for some podcasters. So anyways, Deepa, thank you so much for taking the time today. And I'm very excited to see how GrantOrb grows, and it's an exciting time.
Yeah, thank you, Jarrett. It was really great to talk to you. Bye. Take care.
Thanks.